Hello there, Poison Tea Party people. Janet here. If you're joining us, then it's probably because you're in the mood for a little extra poison, and we're going to do things a little different tonight. It's just me here in the studio. That's right. I'm all alone, and it is a little weird, but we're going to have some fun because I prepared something a little cannibalistic for you all. This is a story that is kind of unbelievable, but I assure you it's completely for real, and it's pretty gruesome, so it's right up our alley. So, in 1819, an Irish-born man by the name of Alexander Pearce was sentenced to a penal colony in Australia for the theft of 6 pairs of shoes. Outrageous, I know. But while he's held there, he continues to commit crimes and acts like a total douchebag. He's caught drinking, he's disobeying the rules, and finally he makes a jailbreak and escapes from the colony. Which I find kind of bizarre, because dude, you stole some shoes. Relax, do your time, call it a day. But the local paper reports his escape to the surrounding communities, and he's eventually caught again. But this time, rather than sending him back to the penal colony where he's just escaped from, the authorities decide, because he's been such a problem child, maybe it's time for Pearce to go somewhere a little more secluded. And this place was called Sarah Island. And that's literally what it was, an island surrounded by shark-infested waters and warm tropical forests that was inhabited by venomous snakes and large predators. Sarah Island Penal Colony was a place they sent the worst offenders because obviously you'd have to be pretty stupid to think you were going to escape from a place like that. The idea was that offenders who were sent there would be deterred from trying to escape because of the harsh conditions. They'd serve their time, and that would be that. That was it. But on September 20th, 1822, Alexander, along with 7 other convicts, make a break for it, and they escape into the dense forest with nothing but an axe. Now, I'm not certain about how the effort to recapture the convicts goes, but Sarah Island Penal Colony was only regulated by a minimal number of guards. Like I said, the authorities were really banking on the harshness of the island to do most of their job for them when it came to keeping the prisoners in line. But obviously, these 8 individuals really thought they'd be able to make nature their bitch and survive and make it out alive. But I think we all know here, it's probably not best to mess with Mother Nature. 15 days into their escape, they still had not been apprehended, but they were starving. Foraging for food wasn't going so well, and they weren't even sure what was safe to eat anyway. So they all looked around at each other and thought, yep, it's time. One of us has to die to feed the others. That's right. Cannibalism. So they did what they felt was fair. They drew straws to determine who the unlucky son of a bitch was going to be. Thomas Bodenham ultimately drew the short straw, and they promptly dispatched him with an axe and feasted on his body. It was at this point, after the meal I might add, that 3 of the 7 men decided that they weren't really down with this. They were afraid that they were going to be the next meal. So, assuming their chances of survival were going to be better if they weren't eaten, they sneakily broke off from the group and ran away into the forest. And 2 of them did make it to Macquarie Harbor, but one guy allegedly died of exhaustion. Allegedly. I mean, nobody knows for sure. That left 4 guys still back at the original camp. They were Alexander Pearce, Robert Greenhill, Matthew Tavers, and John Mather. At this point, Greenhill, who brought the axe, and Matthew Tavers sort of began acting as a team, like they thought of themselves as the leaders of the group, and it became clear either Pearce or Mathers were probably next on the menu. Pearce recognized this, and he quietly teamed up with Greenhill and Tavers to declare John Mathers would be the next victim. They waited for the opportunity and promptly unalived him and ate him. And as time went on, the 3 remaining convicts began to grow hungry again. It became clear that they would once again have to choose who was going to be the sacrifice for the greater good. But in a twist of fate, Tavers would be bitten by a venomous snake, and Greenhill, his buddy, actually attempts to carry him around for 5 whole days until it became clear that he probably wasn't going to survive, and then he ultimately makes the decision to just kill him. And this was actually kind of wonderful for the 2 remaining guys. I mean, they were happy that they wouldn't have to make the choice of who was going to be the next meal. One had kind of just fallen into their laps. They hacked off his infected leg, disposed of it, and proceeded to consume the rest of their old friend. Isn't that just so crazy? I mean, I wonder why they didn't just stop and be like, guys, maybe we should just go back. I mean, it's just a little time digging holes or whatever, and then, we'll have regular food back at the colony, and then we won't have to eat each other. But no. They don't do that. So after Tavers is dead and gone, there's only 2 guys left, Pearce and Greenhill. And Alexander Pearce, who began this whole journey because he stole 6 pairs of shoes, decided that there's no fucking way he's going to be next. He steals the axe while Greenhill sleeps and bashes his head in and eats him. Savage as fuck, I know. But now Pearce is roaming around. He's trying to find his way off this fucking island, and he actually raids an Aboriginal campsite for food, which is pretty ballsy. Unclear if he eats anyone while there, but he eventually reaches one of the very few settled districts on the island and is welcomed into a sheep stealing ring. They steal some sheep, they eat regular food, as far as I can tell, for a little while until Alexander Pearce and a couple of guys from the sheep stealing group are finally apprehended. In total, Pearce was on the run for 113 days. A little less than half of that time was spent in the wilderness. So you can just see within that time he ate 7 other individuals. So while he was incarcerated in Hobart, Pearce made the confession that he had in fact committed cannibalism to several people, including a priest named Reverend Robert Knopwood. Knopwood didn't believe him, though, due to his wildly differing accounts between stories. They sent Pearce back to the penal colony that he had escaped from, that's on Sarah Island. This story should end here, but wait, there's more. In November of the following year, Pearce once again escapes from this colony, this time with a man by the name of Thomas Cox. But his time on the run was short-lived, as he was apprehended after just 10 days. But when Pearce was taken into custody, something was noticeably absent. Or should I say, someone. Thomas Cox was nowhere to be found, and as authorities began to investigate the situation, they made a gruesome discovery. There, in the pockets of Alexander Pearce's trousers, were pieces, that's right, pieces of Thomas Cox remains. This after only 10 days, people, and I think it's reasonable to assume that it could have been even less than the 10 days, since Pearce already had Thomas Cox cut up and portioned out. I don't even know how long anyone could go before they made the decision to eat somebody else, but I'm certain it's not 10 days, right? It's gotta be more than that. The evidence of actual human remains in his pockets, coupled with the eventual confession that he had killed Cox when they arrived at Kings River because he realized he couldn't swim, made for an easy open and shut conviction. Alexander Pearce was hanged in Hobart, Tasmania at 9 a.m. on July 19, 1824. Notably, Pearce's case marked several firsts within the Tasmanian judicial system. He was the first felon to face execution under the new Supreme Court framework. Additionally, his confession made him the first known individual within the Tasmanian courts to admit to acts of cannibalism. And I don't know, if you wanted to be first at something, if this is what you should have been going for, but sometimes, I guess that's just how the pieces fall. And that's going to do it for tonight. I hope you enjoyed this little experimental dose of extra poison. Let us know what you think. We're always trying to come up with new ways to help you get your poison fix, and this was just a random brainstorm idea that came to the top of our list. So please reach out and let us know if you enjoyed the solo host setup. It's just something that we wanted to try out. Check us out on all the platforms. We absolutely love when we get a chance to interact with all of you on social media, and share us with all your friends so we can inch one step closer to our ultimate goal, which is to take over the world. Until next time, my lovelies, may your armpits be hairy, your nightmares be scary, and may your poisons be extra. Bye!